Our Coach's Corner on Daybreak continues with Coach Matt Griffith, the head football coach and athletic director at Sylacauga High School. And tough loss last week. And Coach, since we talked, we've lost a couple of key players. And we were talking 6-1 just a few weeks ago. Now 6-3, 3-3 in region play. Playoff is secure. Tonight it's BB Comer, the crosstown rival. Let's look back at the last week. You hung in there for a half against a good Tallahassee club.
Well, I mean, you know, and we were 6-1 going into Clay, and you know, in the Clay Sylacauga game, if you were there, it could go either way.
There's a lot of energy is put into that game.
You're talking, you lost by a touchdown, and the game could have gone either way, and that was just two hard-fought, hard-fought game between two pretty good football teams. You know, last week we made a decision. We had our running back Alex had been nursing a sore knee. We went and had MRI, and it was a slight it's a meniscus tear, and they really were going to clear him. I mean, you can play with a meniscus and then fix it at the end of the year, and I just didn't feel comfortable with that. He's 15 years old. He's a sophomore. He's got a bright future ahead of him here. And I think on the next level, I wanted to go ahead, and it just wasn't worth trying to play through an injury like that. So, you know, he has surgery next Tuesday, and he would generate. I mean, you're talking about a guy almost at 1,300 yards. He generates a lot of offense, and he took pressure off a sophomore quarterback with Jackson Walker, so it allowed Jackson to settle down and hand the ball off a little bit, and then when he needed to throw, he could throw. And you know, we just went into that. Vince White was out; he's had a meniscus tear, and then we kept Devin Smith out, our starting left tackle, because he's had a bruised knee. He'll be back this week. Brooks Jackson was out with another concussion. He'll be back this week. So yeah, it kind of piled up going into Tallahassee. I was proud of the way the kids played the first half. Yeah, we had a freshman at running back. We've got a lot of young kids, and they got a lot of playing time. That's a good football team. The Baines kid that everybody's heard about, he's everything everybody said he was. My wife does not know anything about football after 20-something years together. She knows nothing. And she kind of met me at the gate. She said, "That boy's got another gear." And I went, that's exactly how you describe a kid that can outrun everybody else.
Yeah. Well, you've had a week or so now as the dust settles on the injuries, and you got these young kids playing, and they're going to have to grow up real quickly against a BB Comer team that's hungry for the first win of the year.
And you know, people, Comer's 0-9, but it really doesn't make it. It really doesn't matter when you go in to play the Marble City Classic. I mean, last year we were sitting in the same boat. We were 6-3, but Comer had a playoff bid, and I think they go 5-5. And, you know, it's a close ball game in the second half, and you just never can look past anybody. We've got to play as hard and as fast as we can to beat this BB Comer team. You know, it's 88 years. I looked it up yesterday.
I was wondering about that.
It's 88 years of tradition of the Marble City Classic. That's a lot. It may be one of the oldest classic rivalry games played in Alabama right now. And I just hope whether Comer's winning, whether Sylacauga's winning, it really doesn't matter. People need to turn out tonight for the Marble City Classic. They need to see that.
Well, a town our size with two high schools in close proximity to each other, it's very rare today in high school football.
Well, and share a stadium. And all the things that go in with that rivalry. And I'm going to tell you something. I mean, the fierce loyalty that people have to where they graduated high school here, whether it be Sylacauga or Comer, is very, very unique.
It's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, they're just that fierce loyalty, and you're supposed to be. You really are. And it's unique in that you've got a ton of people that have fierce loyalty to BB Comer, grow up, went to college, got a job, came back, settled in Sylacauga, and just happened to buy a house where they bought it, and their kids are graduating from Sylacauga, but they still have that fierce loyalty to Comer. That's unique.
Yeah.
It makes the rivalry unique, and it makes it special.
This week, Sylacauga will be probably a heavy favorite in tonight's game against BB Comer. You got a playoff game next week. Is there any concern that, hey, you know, BB Comer's 0-9 and our kids looking to the playoffs? Any concern that they might come out looking ahead a little bit?
Well, it's always a concern. I mean, it's a concern going into this ball game. Probably over the last 6, 7, 8 years that we have qualified for the playoffs most of those years, and you know you've got a playoff game, and especially if Comer has not qualified for the playoffs, It's always a concern. We had a short week this week. That makes it even more of a concern. And there's a lot of distractions with this game. We have a bonfire. Comer's always burn the tire, and you just got to keep your kids focused. They've got to play the game. The biggest concern we have going into this game right now is that Comer's got nothing to lose. We've got a playoff game. We want the game to be played very clean, very well sportsmanship, those kind of things. And win or lose, that it's played the way high school football is supposed to be played.
And of course, you're one of those guys who teaches younger football players. You're one play away from being in that spot yourself, as far as having playing opportunity, and they got to be ready to step up and take the mantle and keep going.
Well, they do. I mean, we've got a ninth grade running back, to Sean Looney, a great kid.
That's young. I mean, ninth grader.
Yeah. And he's the main back in a ninth grade game. He was the starter Friday night against Tallahassee. We worked him all week, but in a kid's mind, he never realized that would happen. Now, he came in and did a good job. He really did. But you're still talking about a 14-year-old kid. He probably doesn't weigh 130 pounds. It's different. But kids have to be ready at all times to step up.
All right, Sylacauga hosting B.B. Comer tonight. The Aggies homeschool this year, and that's another unique thing about this 88-year-old rivalry is one year one team's the host, the next year the other team's the host.
Oh yeah, and I tell you something, it's very unique too with as much as taking care of that stadium and trying to take care of the fields and stuff. Work all summer cutting a field and fertilizing it and sanding it and making it and weed eating it and making it just as plush as you can make it, and then jog your tail over at that visitor side.
Yeah,
it's very different. It's very different. But like I said, it makes the rivalry unique.
All right, tough week last week for your young quarterback. You know that B.B. Comer, with you losing your top tailback and a big majority of your offense, they're going to defensively line up and try to make you throw the football.
Sure they are, and you know what? As hard as we work on our throwing game, and as hard as we do those things, I mean, he's prepared for that. He is. We think he's very prepared, and we're going through some growing pains. We've got him. We've got a young quarterback in Keaton Wilson as a ninth grader that had a good B team year. We're gonna swap them some tonight later on just to get some playing time. It's just about, as a young quarterback settling down and being able to run the offense. He got better this week. Tallahassee was a tough week for him as a quarterback, but the competition level had a lot to do with that. That was a very good defense that flew to the football, and as coaches say, things are moving really fast for him right now. It's fun to watch a quarterback grow, and by their junior and senior year, and then everything slows down in slow motion for him because he's so used to doing it. And that'll be fun to watch him in the next couple of years.
Yeah, finally this morning, hadn't been that many years ago, Sylacauga fans would be excited about a 6-3 season so far going into Game 10, but you spoiled them because they expect 10-0, and you guys are this has been a good year. You 6-3, 3-3 in region play with a playoff game next week. So there's a lot of positives here.
Absolutely, especially we told our booster club going in that we were 1 or 2 injuries away of struggling to even have a winning season. I mean, we really were really thin and knew we were going to have to play young kids if we got in some injury bug. And that's happened, but we've continued. The kids have won. They've done a good job. They're used to winning. And I tell folks, we hold our kids to such a high accountability at Sylacauga. And our parents have been very, very supportive of that. And we will continue to win as long as our parents support this coaching staff, that we have those high standards. When the griping and complaining start because we're holding that kid to a high standard, the place will be in trouble. Yeah. And I don't see that coming, but that's a warning. There's a high accountability. There's a high punishment for not doing the things that we ask you to do. And those kids have bought into that over the last 10 years, and we win because of it, and so have our parents. But if that ever changes, that's when you start losing your program.
Life lessons this morning.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Coach Matt Griffith, the head football coach of the Sylacauga Aggies, as the Aggies get set to host B.B. Comer tonight in the final regular season game for both teams, Sylacauga in the playoffs next week. Coach, we'll see you next week as we talk about the first round of the playoffs and look back at the Marble City Classic. Always a pleasure, sir.
Thanks for having me.
More on Daybreak coming up right after this.